So good evening and welcome to Eastleigh Borough Council's Cabinet meeting of the 22nd of July 2020, broadcast on Teams Live. This evening we have a fairly routine meeting of the Council's Cabinet, which will deal with a number of items of business. All of the Cabinet members are here with the exception of Councillor Curl, who said he'll be just a few minutes late. And so we'll move on to business sooner rather than later. There's the support officers that'll be with the meeting, and we'll carry on from there. Right, so then, this evening's meeting. We normally kick off with public participation, but there's no one to participate publicly this evening, so we can move from that item straight into the main agenda, which starts off with minutes from the last meeting, which have been circulated in advance and noted. Are colleagues happy to note those? I see people nodding at me around the virtual room. So that's good, we'll take that as done. Move on to apologies which we have for lateness from Councillor Curl. We've had Councillor Curl is now here. Welcome, Rupert. I understand that Tonya Craig's IT has dropped out briefly, but hopefully she'll be back very soon. We have declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest on items on this agenda? At the moment, again, I'm seeing no one indicating they wish to speak, so we'll therefore move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the update on COVID-19. This has become a routine report, routine as much as routine can possibly be at this stage, and details actions of the council over the course of the last month, with operating in parallel the issues that have been running across the country and the council's response to them. I just want to put on record again my thanks, and I'm sure all Cabinet's thanks to all council members and staff for all the work they've been doing over the next month. It's still pretty disconcerting operating in the way that we're operating at the moment, whether that's staff out on the streets doing their job in a socially distanced manner, or staff who would normally be in the office who are managing to do everything from home, including successfully staffing up all the phone lines into the council, where we've provided a fantastic service. I'm going to go straight to Tonya Craig, who wants to speak on this item, and give her the chance to give her update. Tonya.
There's no real update. It was just to put on record, really, the thanks to all the staff. Again, we're getting our weekly updates from Natalie, especially, and it was just to say thanks again. It's really useful getting those updates. I know things change quickly, but so do the updates. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much, Tonya. And the report does cover all the normal things we'd expect now to see in the report. There's an update included on the way we've handled our business grants. We've had a fantastic response from our local businesses. The discretionary grant fund still has just a little bit of money left in it. If there are businesses out there who you know of who might be interested in applying for a grant, who haven't already had a grant from any of the government schemes, the point of the discretionary scheme was to make sure that those businesses that have fallen through the cracks have the opportunity to get their crack of the whip. Also, the fact we've got our play areas reopened, which is good news for children playing. It's actually really good to see those up and running again with young people having some fun on the council's play equipment. We have reluctantly come to the conclusion that the paddling pool at Fleming Park can't reopen for safety reasons during the course of this summer. I think that's a practical and pragmatic response to social distancing and the issues that are particularly thrown up around water-based activities with the virus. This report normally includes a detailed financial report. That's not in this paper because it's on a separate item with our medium-term financial plan this time round, which looks forward to the future. But the point of reassurance is that the council's finances are in good order. We have been able to cope with the issues that have been thrown at us as a result of extra costs and lost income, and the medium-term financial plan that we'll discuss later in the meeting picks up those items. I've got nothing else I wanted to raise on this report this time. Do any other colleagues wish to speak? I've got no one indicating they want to at the moment. So in which case, if colleagues are happy that we take that as agreed, we will do just that. And that then gives us the opportunity to move on to item 6, which is the corporate action plan for 2020 to 2021. This has seen quite a number of changes as a result of projects that have been delayed as a result of the virus, priorities that have had to be reprioritised as a result of the virus, and indeed some new activities brought in as a consequence of some of the issues that we've had thrown at us over the course of the last few weeks and months. The Policy and Performance Screening Panel took a look at this report. I'm just going to read the panel's notes from their consideration of the Corporate Action Plan. Their recommendations are, wherever possible, targets and milestones are set within year to provide a clear basis for planning and evaluation, and that wherever possible, measures and key performance indicators identified are incorporated into the Council's overall performance monitoring process so that the relevant data is readily available for monitoring and reflection. That all sounds to me eminently sensible. I know that individual cabinet members have had the chance to go through the details of their portfolios with the items that are in the Corporate Action Plan for the coming year, and therefore I think most of what's here in front of us this evening is pretty well agreed. But does anyone want to speak to any of these items at this stage? Again, I'm getting no one indicating they want to speak, so if colleagues are happy that we take that as agreed, that's helpful, and then we can move on to item 7, which is a really exciting proposal for a tree nursery. I'll give Rupert Curl the opportunity to speak on this one in a moment, but I'll just make some comments again from the Policy and Performance Scrutiny Panel up front, so that Rupert's got a chance to digest those before he speaks. The panel welcomes the proposal to develop a tree nursery and is mindful of the need for specialist expertise to ensure the success of the project. The panel recommends that the project seek to identify any skills gaps and to hire or consult expertise as appropriate. In particular, so as to ensure that the proposed location is appropriate for use as a nursery at the intensity envisaged, and to identify and mitigate any negative impacts on existing habitat. The panel discussed the potential for CO2 sequestered from trees from the nursery to be double counted by both the council and, for example, businesses that have sponsored a tree, and the panel recommends that the approach to accounting for sequestered carbon or other environmental benefits be developed in such a way as to prevent that double counting. That all sounds eminently sensible to me, but I'll hand over to Rupert to introduce this paper because it's a really exciting proposal which is going to be fantastic in terms of our tackling the climate change, plus also growing lots of trees. Rupert.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, you're absolutely right. This is incredibly exciting. This is something that I've had very close to my heart for a number of years, in effect, that actually this is the right approach for councils across the country, in effect, to actually take the approach of growing your own trees, in effect, which obviously clearly cuts down on mileage, and clearly obviously you can then use that opportunity, in effect, to offset your carbon footprint, if you like, in the activities that the council have. As you know, we have the Climate Environment Emergency Action Plan, and a key part of that actually was to have a tree nursery, and clearly obviously the benefits which I've just obviously outlined to yourself. And in February there was a commitment by this council, in effect, to plant 160,000 trees over a 10-year period, which basically would equate to a tree for every person within the borough, which is obviously an incredibly fantastic thing to do, but it will give us a lot long-term benefits, in effect, to our borough. It will obviously extend our tree numbers, but also the tree canopy within the borough, which clearly obviously has major environmental benefits, which obviously we and also future generations will also be able to enjoy. So yes, this is the proposed paper in front of you of how we sort of propose to sort of set out to want to do this. Clearly the first element is obviously to sort of involve businesses, and where there will be further phases, in effect, where we'll be able to obviously involve community groups or members of the public, maybe schools, community groups like Cub Scouts, all those sorts of things. And clearly we want to get as many people involved in this initiative as possible over the period of time that we have. And clearly another important element of that is obviously including businesses where they want to offset their own carbon emissions. And clearly that will obviously help us towards the 2030 target, but also being mindful of the fact that we have our 2025 target to meet. And clearly obviously we want to do that by obviously planting a number of trees over that period of time. And I hope actually that beyond the 10-year period that this will be something that the council will want to take potentially in perpetuity, that actually it's the right thing to do to locally source trees, which is clearly good for the environment, clearly good for the borough and our residents. So I'm happy to commend this. It's really exciting proposal, a really exciting project, and I do hope that Cabinet members will embrace this and approve it. I do have updates with regards to the issues and comments that were raised from Policy and Performance. I'm very happy to go through those with you now if you wish, Chair and Cabinet members.
Yes,
or
please.
Indeed, oh, okay, fair enough, I can do that, or I could take it at the end if there were any other comments or we have checked with our consultant ecologist on some of the issues that were raised from Policy and Performance, and just to inform you, and I do apologise, but there are actually quite a few points that were raised from that meeting, but I think it is actually really important that we're clear on these issues, and that we have actually taken some of the points and concerns that were raised incredibly seriously, because they absolutely want to make sure we do this right, and right from the start. And we've received this information from, as I say, the consultant ecologist, and basically he has said, yes, there is a common pipistrelle bat roost within one of the buildings, which is currently on the site, and there is a planning application to demolish one of those buildings, and obviously clearly within that there would be required mitigation for that bat roost. The timing of the setup of the nursery will therefore need to take account of the timetable for the building demolition. No reptiles have been recorded within the site, however the site is suitable for reptiles, and therefore any vegetation, rubble, etc. or clearance should be undertaken under a precautionary method of works to avoid potential killing or injuring of reptiles, which clearly is obviously common practice. Barn owls, which was raised at the meeting, I know, are unlikely to be affected anyway by the proposals, as they have not been recorded, apparently. Sorry, Chair. They've not been recorded on site, nesting or roosting in the location, nor is it likely that the conversion of arable land for crop production into land for production of trees will have a significant effect on the extent or quality of foraging habitat available to barn owls, and I know that was specifically raised by one of the members of the panel. It goes on about obviously the retention of the southern boundary of trees, which should be kept, and obviously any excavation developed within the site should be outside the root protection area of those trees, which again is a common thing that is with planning applications. And obviously there is a point that was raised about obviously the impact of tree nursery on the site ecology as a whole, and there doesn't apparently appear to be any matters arising from the above which would prevent the establishment of a tree nursery at this location. However, the project group for the nursery will obviously liaise with Eastleigh Borough Council's ecologist, which obviously I'm proposing that they are put on the group that overlooks this project anyway, to ensure that any necessary mitigations of the impacts are implemented as the site is developed. I think that would clearly be a positive thing to do. Another issue obviously was counting trees towards the climate mitigation, and the nursery project team will obviously identify a scheme which is going to be transparent and clearly needs to be auditable to ensure that the trees are not counted twice for the purpose of climate mitigation. And clearly this will need to go before the Climate Board to be approved, because obviously clearly if we are aiming for a target, we need to absolutely make sure that there isn't double counting going on, because that is counterproductive for everybody, and that clearly we need to make sure that there is traceability and accountability with regards to achieving the targets we want to by 2025, and clearly obviously the further target of 2030. So that sort of covers that point as well. And I think oh yes, and there is guidance from the Woodland Trust with regards to trees, and clearly we would be following their best practice guidance, and obviously wanting to make sure that we are doing absolutely the right thing, because otherwise at the end of the day we wouldn't be achieving what we want to, which is obviously trees that we can then take out and plant within our local communities and wide open spaces. And just on the issue of expertise, just to clear that up, there has been identified a member of staff who actually has got significant experience of working actually as a treeman or whatever or plantsman, I think they're called, and basically also our head of direct services has also got extensive expertise within this area as well. So actually we are very well blessed in that area, but clearly obviously if there is any gaps, then clearly obviously we would obviously look to fill those gaps, but currently it certainly seems as though we do have enough qualification within our existing staff to be able to get this off the ground. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you, Rupert. I really did thought you'd come to a natural conclusion about a few minutes ago, but there we are. Thank you for that. That's a really detailed explanation, not just of the points that were raised in public by Policy Informed Scrutiny Panel in terms of their decision, but also the issues that were discussed at that meeting. So I've got questions and commentary from around the room, and there's a question from Tonya.
Yeah, firstly, I'd just like to say it's a really good project, and you know, something that we really wanted to take off the ground. The question is, I've had a few residents recently asking me whether they can actually have trees to plant in their own garden, and whether they could be monitored in a way that would meet our targets as well. So are there any plans for us to open it to residents for planting in their own gardens?
We'll come straight back to Rupert on that one.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this will obviously be, there are several phases to this. Obviously, the first one obviously is the business which we're launching now, which we obviously want to get underway in September. Yeah, but certainly my view, and clearly obviously the group that will be formed to take this project forward will obviously come forward with proposals for the next phases, but certainly my view of this project would be that we would be encouraging, in fact, members of the public and other groups, etc., to get involved in this, and clearly I would see no reason why people wouldn't be able to purchase their own trees if they wish to do so, but clearly obviously the details of that need to be worked out in the future, but this is obviously the first of the stepping stones, but clearly, yes, I would hope that actually we would want to open this out to everyone in the borough if they wanted to get involved in some way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rupert. Let's go straight to Paul Bicknell now.
Thank you, Chair. Tonya's sort of almost asked the question I was going to ask, but I was going to take it a little step further. I mean, it's a fantastic project, and you know, there's nothing not to like about it at the end of the day. But I say, expanding on Councillor Craig's question. And that with reference to the purchase of trees, as we go further down the line, because obviously you can't do it right from the start, would there be the ability to actually become a supplier of trees, you know, not just for the fact that actually, you know, we're going to plant 160,000, but would there actually be the possibility that, you know, we could supply trees for other councils, for instance, and such like, or is that sort of pushing the boundaries a bit far? And obviously then that would actually make it, you know, as well as meeting our environmental credentials and CO2, and that actually would also give us a commercial angle as well.
I'll just pick that up myself quite briefly, Paul. Yes, potentially. We'll see where it goes. This could be a really long-term project that is effectively a business for the council. So it ticks the box in terms of climate action. It ticks the box in terms of growing trees, but it also does that in a sustainable way, which can supply trees to other businesses and to other councils in the future. And when we move on from the Horton Heath site, quite possibly to other locations as well, when we need to move on from that location. Right, so we're going to go to Derek Pretty next. Derek.
Right. Thank you, Chair. As everyone said, I think it's a very exciting project. I think for me the benefits will be that we have healthier trees in our possession. We import so many from abroad. They come in perhaps with diseases that we're unaware of, and obviously shorter times between uplifting and planting again make the probability of healthy establishment even better. I think overall, excellent idea. I don't know how long it will take to get trees to a suitable size, but when I go around the various housing developments that I'm involved with, I see some of the trees that the developers have put in, they look sick, they look rather tired and totally unhealthy. And I think this is an excellent way of trying to make sure that when we do ask for a planting scheme, we get quality trees in the right place at the right time. So well done to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Those are good points, and I'm sure they'll be taken on board. I'll go straight to Tina Campbell next. Tina.
Thank you, Chair. I obviously totally support this for many of the reasons that have already been stated, but I additionally wanted to welcome the 2 new apprenticeships that are outlined to be part of this, and the opportunity for the voluntary sector to get involved with this. That's really welcome. I love the idea that you know, this is about businesses and schools and hopefully individual residents getting involved. And I'm really grateful that we've picked up in the equality impact assessment the importance of making sure that residents who may have disabilities, making sure that they're able to fully participate in this scheme. So I'm grateful for the acknowledgement of that. And I note in terms of social deprivation that we talk about possibly the trees will go to areas of social deprivation to obviously enhance the environment there. And I would just like to say that possibly when we get to that stage of individual householders being involved, perhaps we could also think about making sure that those who are affected by social deprivation, that they are able to participate, because I note that there is a, you know, a £10 charge to get involved with this. So maybe when we get to that stage, we might be able to think and make sure it is fully inclusive, because it's an absolutely cracking idea, and I'm sure our residents will want to get involved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tina. This is the work in progress, obviously, as we know, and so there'll be some changes between now and when we launch and when we have trees available to move out into the community around the borough or for sort of wider planting. I'm going to go to David Airy next.
Muted.
You're muted, David.
Carrying on from the points that Derek was making about seeing sort of poor standard of trees on estates and so on, much of that's because of poor aftercare, and this is a real key issue. I think trees in their early years in particular need a hell of a lot of water to get established. If we have a dry winter, then of course they're going to get even bigger problem, but even in summer months they do need water and so on. So that type of management of the trees is really, really important to get that right. You're always going to get a proportion that die off for whatever reason. It's about then the replacement of those, particularly if somebody's sponsored a tree and a family, or whether it's a business, doesn't matter. So I think, you know, those are some of the issues that are going to be thought about, which will be developed as the policy gets developed along the line. The other thing I was going to talk about was the options we've got here about procurement of them. And I was just wondering, in the first year, possibly the first 18 months, whether there'll be a sort of mixed procurement approach. In other words, we get out during that time, we get our tree nursery established, up and coming, but actually start the first year of planting trees with actually ones we bought in from near local other nurseries that have quality trees for sale as possible, or another authority which might have trees that we can buy from them that are of quality, so that we can actually get the thing started, people see what's happening at the same time as we're developing our tree nursery, which is going to take a little bit of time, and it's not something you're going to be able to pick off the tree ready made. It will take time. So thank you.
Pick off the tree ready made. Okay, yeah. We're going to give Rupert the chance to come back on that in a moment. I think the points about maintenance are absolutely really important, and we have seen with some developments around the borough, and I'm going to name one, the Bellway development Latitude to the south of Hedge End, where the tree management by the developer has been absolutely appalling, and we've had to take enforcement action on that, which is regrettable, but it's important we get these things right for our residents, whether they're new residents or long established residents. I'm going to go to Ian Corbin next, and then I'm going to ask Rupert to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to cover the aftercare as well, but that's been well covered with David. We can all name developments where we've had issues, and that feeds into the main point around parish and town councils hopefully they will have access to this as well. And I think from a knowledge point of view, making sure that they know that we will have this facility. And I'm hoping as well some education there as well, because they won't all be lucky enough to have specialists. They'll have, clearly they've got ground workers and staff, but the point is really well made by David and Keith, that these and Derek, these trees need a lot of care when they go in. Dowd's Farm in Hedge End North is a really good example where, with the best intentions, a lovely promenade of trees, which were going to be a feature. I think we're on the second lot now, I think, and there a number of those are showing signs of wilting. Now that will be the ground, it'll be the preparation, it'll be the water, and everything will be there. But I do think this is a really important project and initiative. Clearly I'm going to support it, and hopefully the town and parish councils will come on the journey with us as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. Now, Rupert, you were nodding quite furiously during a lot of those last contributions. Last chance for final words on this and to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Chair. I won't dwell too long. I think we've covered everything. I think there are huge opportunities here for everyone. I mean, I take up the points that Tina was saying. Clearly, we want to include people from across the borough, from all different backgrounds, all different abilities, and ages as well. I think that's a really positive thing. You know, it ticks all of the boxes. This has the opportunity and the potential to be something really very special, and we're really good at doing that in Eastleigh, I think. And I really would like to hope that, you know, putting my name to this in effect, and us as a corporate body, that actually we will be able to deliver a first-class facility in effect, with developing our own tree stock. And clearly with developers, yes, we want developers to come on board. In fact, we're hoping that they will buy their trees from us, and that actually we will be able to use those on developments. And clearly some of those trees will actually stay on the nursery site for a period longer to make sure they are a bit more established. But the actual view of the nursery in effect is that we'll be bringing on tree stock that will only be probably sort of 2 years old in effect, really, before they are then taken out, because that's the actual optimum time to plant those sorts of trees, because the roots take a lot better with the soil, rather than some of the mature specimens, which is one of the reasons possibly maybe that they are failing, as indeed they are on some of our development sites, because they are more mature trees, and it's sort of the shock, if you like, of going into the ground. And clearly there are maintenance issues, I'm afraid, and Borley Park is another one where actually, you know, the developer hasn't even been planting the trees they said they were going to, which is not particularly great, let alone looking after the ones which clearly have sadly passed because they've not been maintained properly. There have been some great points that have been raised this evening by all members, and clearly, as I say, you know, I think genuinely this is an open door, if you like, we're pushing at, and that all of those points will be very much welcomed, and clearly we want to take those on board and incorporate them into our strategy and our delivery plan for this project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rupert. I don't think we're going to call it the Rupert Curl Nursery, but
no, I didn't mean it
too
like
close to nepotism. But I'm sure the intention is exactly right. Now, everybody has spoken on this, and all spoken in support. So I think we can take it that has been agreed by all colleagues. I've learned more about trees through this process, and even in the last 30 minutes, than I have in a long time, not being a natural gardener and not being a natural arboriculturalist. But there we go. Right, so we're going to move on. Next item on the agenda, in what is clearly the Rupert Curl show this evening, is to talk about revisions to our domestic waste and recycling policy. And there is a document that's been circulated. The Policy and Performance Panel again has had a look at this, and they've suggested that in addition to making extra additional green bins available, we should be prepared to make additional food waste bins available too. And I'll let Rupert introduce this and respond to the Policy and Performance Panel. Rupert.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chair. Apologies that it does seem to be my show. But yes, we've reviewed the domestic waste and recycling policy. It was actually quite a period of time that we've actually looked at this. So it was actually timely that we did this as part of a larger piece of work which we're undertaking at the moment. And we just wanted to make sure that actually our policy was reflecting good practice, that clearly it was up to date, and that obviously we would be able to enable this so that residents in effect knew what we were sort of expecting from them, and obviously clearly they can understand what they're expecting from us with regards to the service. So yes, there has been some updates and some tweaks to our original policy, which are obviously in the document that's before you. There isn't really a great deal more to say on that, really, to be honest, because it is very self-explanatory, I think, the paper, but it just sets out the clear framework, an updated framework in effect of our domestic waste and recycling policy. Thank you, Chair.
Good. Thank you very much, Rupert. Now we've got what's described as a quick question from Paul Bicknell, so we'll move to Paul Bicknell.
Muted.
You're muted, Paul.
Right, thank you. No, it is a quick question. It's probably not one that was in the old policy, because I think it's more of a sort of, if you like, a sort of gentleman's agreement. But will there still be the amnesty at Christmas for overflowing black bins, please? Thank you.
Rupert's nodding. Does anyone else want to contribute on this or not at this stage? I'm going to take Rupert's nod as assent on that, which is then fine. If no one else wishes to... You do want to come back? All right, you can come back.
Very quickly, sorry, when I meant the amnesty is with regards to one extra black bag that we allow at the collection after Christmas. So it's not an amnesty that people can just pile everything up outside, you know, buy their bins. And clearly recycling, obviously, we will want to take as much as we possibly can from people, and obviously it's clearly in the report as to how we would like people to do that. But yes, there is the amnesty for a single black bag extra for the collection immediately after Christmas. Yes, and just in response to the P&P, if I may, Chair, yes, it clearly it is in the report about that you are able to have extra bins or receptacles, if you like, for recycling, but it just didn't seem as though it possibly was clear enough with regards to the food waste caddies. But clearly, if people do require more, then yes, obviously they are entitled. We are very happy to let them have more if they requested them. Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so that was yes then. That's fine. Good. Right. I think we can probably just look around the room and see if everyone's happy with that. I've got no one shaking their head. Everyone's nodding their head. So we can take that item as agreed. Thank you very much, colleagues. And thank you, Rupert, for all your work in that area. And of course, the staff team behind. We'll move on to item 9 on the agenda, which is an update on the council's finances over the last year. This has been circulated and worked through by portfolio holders in terms of the council's financial outturn, and I think it's probably fairly straightforward. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? No one does, so we'll take that as agreed. Thank you very much, colleagues. That then moves us on to item 10, which is the council's medium-term financial plan. This does look forward to the issues that are coming at us, and is a pretty solid story, which is really helpful, that the council's finances are in a good, strong, solid position, which is pretty remarkable considering the events we've had over the course of the last 3 months. I'd like to thank staff for all the work that's gone into that. The recommendation in front of us is that we note the financial position, that we give protection to our local area committees in terms of their budgets for their funding, where they've been affected by loss of income, and allocate additional funding from New Homes Bonus that can contribute to the improvements at the Wilson swimming pool. And I've got Paul Bicknell wanting to come in with what again is described as a quick question. You still, that's it.
Thank you, Chair. No, the quick question was to Rupert about the Christmas thing. No, I wasn't quite quick enough to pass comment on agenda item number 9, but it wrapped up in number 10. I just wanted to thank the staff also for preparing both these reports for the outturn and the medium-term financial plan. Obviously the other thing is I just wanted to mention is the fact that due to the staff's diligence and constant monitoring and bringing us the reports, Eastleigh Borough Council is in a good financial position. There's many councils out there that would love to be in the position that we're in. that they're not. And that's down to, say, the diligence of the staff and bringing these reports to us and our monitoring and what have you. So I just wanted to thank the staff for putting us and therefore our residents in such a good financial position going forward, and the fact that our residents won't basically end up having to have savage cuts imposed on them by Eastleigh Borough Council, because we are in a sound financial position. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, I think it is worth remarking on. There have been quite a lot of press stories around the country of councils that are close to being bankrupt at the moment. Technically called a Section 114 position, which means they have to stop incurring discretionary expenditure. We're absolutely not in that position. We do have sound and solid finances, and the medium-term financial plan accounts for all the issues that we're aware of so far and makes reasonable provision for those that we don't know about yet, that are a result of the COVID-19 epidemic. We have seen elsewhere, just locally at Hampshire, we know that Hampshire is £103 million down so far on COVID-19. I've had to agree to £120 million of additional cuts. And of 4 possible financial scenarios looking forward, 3 of the 4 of those show that the council is not financially viable. The responsibility must be to central government on all of these items. Central government made a commitment at the start of the epidemic that local government would be recompensed for spending that was incurred and for lost income. And so far it's happened partially, but it's not happened fully, and it was essential for the continued provision of public services, whether you're Eastleigh resident, a Winchester resident, a Portsmouth resident, whatever, and that requires government support to make these things work, and it's not fully there yet. I've got David Airy wanting to speak on this item, so David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Right, thank you. I was going to, you mentioned Weldon School. This is Weldon School swimming pool, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, I was, and that takes me back to the county council, because I looked at who were the contributors to funding the repairs and improvements there, which is great. I'm not criticising the project, but it surprised me that the county council wasn't listed as one of the contributors, and I was wondering why that was.
I think, David, that's a sad reflection of the way the world is these days on a lot of these projects. We have sports facilities on a number of school sites around the borough. You'll be very aware of the ones that we provided at Hamburg, with a quite significant financial contribution from Eastleigh Borough Council. We've done the same over the years at Wilton in Hedge End. And the objective was set many years ago when we concluded that we had done a great job as a local authority back in the 1970s in providing the Flowing Park Leisure Centre, more recently in re-providing the Flowing Park Leisure Centre as Places Leisure Eastleigh, but wanted to make sure that we had a decent provision of leisure facilities in the south of the borough, so that people didn't have to trek to Eastleigh. And our conclusion many years back now was that the best way of doing that was to double up on school sites, even though we're not a local education authority, and hence the provision of additional facilities at several of our secondary schools. We have in the past provided them at Crestwood in Eastleigh, we have at Wyvern in Fair Oak, and more significant facilities in the south of the borough at Hedge End with the Wilton Leisure Centre, and at Hamble with the leisure facilities and fantastic Dynamo gym that is still going on strong. And I had a message from Dynamo just a couple of days ago saying they're about to relaunch. Good luck to them, because they do a fantastic job for young people and getting young people physically fit and active and doing teamwork in gymnastics. But the responsibility for a lot of the finances on these projects is borne by Eastleigh Borough Council, and sometimes with help from the schools. And Wilton have helped enormously with on-site provision of finance for their projects. With the project at the pool in Hedge End, which is replacing what was meant to be a temporary roof erected in 1979, so it hasn't done badly to last 41 years. We did find a number of issues in terms of the physical condition of the building, the structure that's required additional expenditure, along with the delays that have come about as a result of the virus. We got work restarted pretty quickly, so that there's the minimum disruption to the education of young people, particularly when they go back after such an extended break in September, so that the new pool facility will be available not too long after that. But the new roof, the new seating around the pool will make for a much better facility, and yes, the financial liability for that has largely been borne by this council, and as we know, Hampshire, sadly, really sadly, is broke. Now, where are we at in terms of speakers? I've got Ian Corbin wanting to speak, I think.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to add, just with regards to the medium-term plan, how secure and how pleased I am to see from an income point of view, things holding up. Clearly, we don't know what's around the corner, but the due diligence that goes into all of the financial transactions that we go into, particularly with the commercial property, we do look at lots of downsides, and I think, again, a mention to the staff. They're clearly working very closely with our tenants, and undoubtedly providing support, which can range across a number of things, an arm around the shoulder to financial help, but across all of those areas. And I think this really just comes back to what we've said before at various times, largely at budget, because that's the time when we focus on these things, that the diversity of the property portfolio is what will undoubtedly help through this difficult period. So we don't know what's ahead, but this is very strong, and we've said it before, but there are plenty of councils out there that would like to be sat where Eastleigh Borough Council is sitting at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Ian. Absolutely agree with all those comments. Derek Pretty wants to come in, so I'll go straight to him. You've just remuted yourself, Derek.
How about that?
Perfect.
It's the big fingers. No, I'd just like to really endorse what Ian has said. I think we've been very cautious with a great deal of diligence in the investments we've undertaken. There was an article on the news this evening, I think it's Camberley, that we're building a new 5G shopping centre, £100 million with outside backing as well. That is really going in without due diligence. I think they've overstretched themselves. Eastleigh have been extremely cautious. They're very savvy to the marketplace, and I think we've done a very good job. Our staff are very cautious, they advise us well, and I think we've got a good portfolio, and I think more like that would see us very well established in the future.
Thank you, Derek. Those are good points, and I think that one of the issues that's caused some other local authorities difficulties is that they've invested a lot in places outside their area. We have largely invested in Eastleigh. The vast majority of our commercial property is within the borough. Some of it is actually legacy property that we've owned for decades, but the consequence of all of that and very careful portfolio management has been that we've had a degree of protection that not everyone has had the opportunity to gain from. We need to monitor very closely, of course, but the council's underlying financial position is incredibly strong, and that's testament to long-term policy making for the Borough Council and some really good work by our staff team across a range of disciplines. And included a lot in that is also the way we've developed our contracts, because there have been councils that have been exposed to difficulties with weak contracts that have put them at the risk of leisure operators in particular in recent times. That's not the case in our position. Right, well, we've seen agreement on those issues, I think, around the room. I've got no one else indicating they want to speak, so I'm going to take it as agreed with the recommendations that are on the agenda paper that's been published, that we accept the medium-term strategy plan as it's at the moment, with the additional funding for Wilden and the protection of our budgets for our local area committees. Excellent. Now we have one private item of business to consider, which is a commercially sensitive one around a land transaction, which will require us to go into private session. So if colleagues are happy that we do that, we will at this stage end the public broadcast of this cabinet meeting. We will be back in September in this format again, because we're going to stick with this for a while, just a little bit longer, given all the issues around social distancing and the importance of making sure that we can transact our business in a safe way for the benefit of our residents. So from me, Keith House, the leader of the council, I wish everyone watching this a good evening. Thank you very much for watching and listening and learning a little bit about the way the Borough Council does its business. So thank you all and good night.